This is working. Nope, looks like it is. Okay. I always feel like it's kind of a miracle when things actually work. All right, I'm going to turn the sound down here, and this will be how I check to make sure it's working all right. Okay, changed the header around, so hopefully turn the sound down here. It's coming through in all kinds of places. Let me get out of there. There, okay. All right, I see folks are joining. That's exciting. Hey, Alfonso, nice to see you. Hey, Nora, nice to see you. Let me know if you're here. Say hey. And shut that. Maybe Garrett, you can give me like a thumbs up if it looks like the. Oh, you are telling me already. That was looking good. Okay, I need to stop looking down here. Put my phone here. Okay, I'm gonna give it a couple minutes for folks to get into the live stream, but I see people are joining, so say hey if you're here, give me a wave, let me know where you're calling from, or I'm calling, where you're tuning in from, we'll say, and also don't forget to share this on your wall to invite your friends to join us in this conversation. So, hey, Ambrosia, nice to see you. Let me make sure I'm comfy. Hey, Lydia. See our friends. Don't forget to share on your wall that you're here. And actually, if you use the hashtag #MoveToAmend, so share this feed on your wall right now. Use the little share button. Make sure that you include the hashtag #MoveToAmend, and we'll pick a lucky winner to get one of our stamps. Last time I held it up backwards, so here, I think I got it right. One of our stamps from our online shop by the end of this broadcast. So share right now this feed, invite your friends to join us, and make sure you use the hashtag #MoveToAmend so that we can see that you've done it. And then we will pick one lucky person to get one of our stamps. Hey, Norm, nice to see you. Hey, Anne, nice to see you too. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I think we've got a critical mass. Welcome to this edition of Move to Amend's monthly live stream, the Move to Amend report. Oh, I've got companion. This is the space where you can hear the latest about what's going down in the movement to amend the U.S. Constitution and legalize democracy. I'm your host, Caitlin Saposi-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. And as always, you can find us here on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock Pacific, right here on Facebook Live. Be sure to like and comment and share and tag your friends. Tell us where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions at any point, you can post them in the comments and I will answer. Or Garrett, who's working the comments, will help out by answering as well. And if you're tuning into the recording, you can still post questions and comments, and we will respond, not live, but we will respond as quick as we can. And remember to share this feed on your wall right now with the hashtag #MoveToAmend, and we'll pick a lucky winner to get one of our stamps from our online shop by the end of the broadcast. So let's jump in with some highlights from February. So first of all, we had 2 new co-sponsors get added to House Joint Resolution 48, the We the People Amendment. So remember that our goal was to have 45 co-sponsors in the House on the We the People Amendment before the end of this year. But we are currently at, I think, 55 with Denny Heck from Washington State adding in this month. So shout out to our affiliates, Jefferson County Move to Amend and Kitsap Move to Amend, and their coalition partners at Fix Democracy First in Washington State for your awesome work lobbying and bird dogging Denny Heck to bring him on as a co-sponsor. And then also Maxine, Reclaiming My Time Waters from California, came on as a co-sponsor as well just last week. So great work to our supporters and our affiliates in California. I want to give a shout out to Tony and to Amy. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see you here. feel free to let me know that you're tuning in by posting a comment, and a reminder that if you share the feed and use the hashtag #MoveToAmend, we'll pick one person who's done that and give you one of our stamps from our online shop before the end of the broadcast. One of our stamps that looks like this. So let's see. At the beginning of February, I took my first trip to the Gulf Coast of the United States and did some barnstorming down there, and started off with a conference that I attended in New Orleans called Unrig the System. And that was it was a really great trip. It was a good conference. Most of the focus was on money and politics, not so much the amendment or corporate power at its roots. But it was great to be able to be there and to make sure that we talked about the amendment at the Unrig the System conference, and talked about really the systemic ways that we need to unrig the system, not just overturning Citizens United, not just addressing gerrymandering or publicly funded elections, all of which are good policies, but kind of getting at the underlying systemic doctrines which prop up the political and legal system as we currently understand it. So that was great. There were about 500 to 1,000 folks who were at that conference, and it was my first time to New Orleans. So good to do that. And then did barnstorming stops, which is what we call our speaking events in New Orleans and in Gulf Springs, Mississippi, and then went to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, went to Birmingham, Alabama, and then Pensacola, Florida. So did a bunch of great events, met some awesome folks from the South, which is not where we have too many affiliates. So it was awesome to meet folks there and to, learn a little bit. I haven't always lived in California, and I've lived in some pretty conservative places actually, but the situation with politics in the South, and particularly in Alabama and Mississippi, is different than I'm used to. So I learned a bunch and met some awesome people who are doing amazing work. And looking forward to going back there probably later this year. So that was a great start off to the month. I'll talk a little bit later about where I'm going next in next week. And so we'll get to that in a second. But in terms of talking about, like how the month has gone and what's the focus for February, the lead story that we have to talk about this month is guns and the National Rifle Association. So, we all know this. The Las Vegas shooting late last year left 58 people dead and over 500 people injured. Now 17 students are dead and more than a dozen people were injured in Parkland, Florida. And this should not be normal. Nobody should ever be gunned down at a concert, a school, or anywhere. And the way that it happens here is definitely a uniquely American problem. There are people who are in danger all over the world from wars and things like that. But in terms of civilians shooting each other in places that people would consider normally safe, this is a uniquely American problem. And this topic often gets sidetracked into arguments about patriotism and the Second Amendment rights, but we have to ask ourselves a fundamental question. Would our gun laws look the same if corporate money from gun manufacturers and the National Rifle Association, which is also a corporation, wasn't corrupting our system? And the obvious answer to that is no. Polling after the Parkland shooting showed that 97% of Americans support universal background checks. Do we have those? No. 83% support mandatory waiting periods. Do we have that? No. 2/3 support an assault weapons ban. Do we have an assault weapons ban? No. This is a textbook example of corporate rule, and the ramifications are huge, people. Gun laws, like everything else, are determined by private money and corporate interests. Shareholders in the gun industry, and also just capitalism in general, demand growth. They want more money and will bribe legislators to do whatever it takes to make it as easy as possible for people to get a gun. Marco Rubio even looked some of the surviving students right in the face and refused to stop taking money from the National Rifle Association. And why would he, when the system rewards politicians who do? virtually every other public official is taking corporate money too, and most of our national officials are taking money from the NRA, and so are our state representatives as well. So all of this is happening in the context of February being Black History Month, and March is Women's History Month. These 2 months are more significant than ever in some ways right now because we have a white supremacist and proud sexual abuser occupying the most powerful office in the whole world. And half of the country doesn't really even seem to mind those two things. And to be clear, our country has never been a real democracy, so it's not like we're in, that's a new problem. Contrary to what school textbooks say, from the start, the Constitution was written as a property rights document, and the most important property that the framers were trying to protect was the human beings that many of them owned. We only added human rights afterwards, either the Bill of Rights or the other amendments. So when we think about the Constitution, most of the time we're thinking of amendments, but that's not the original framework. Those are literally the amendments that were added later to make the document better. Even with those few human rights that we have added, and the initial Bill of Rights, only wealthy white male property owners were considered persons worth protection at the founding of the United States. That was barely 5% of the population. So that's why here at Move to Amend, we're trying to work to build a real and authentic democracy movement and recognize that the situation that we're in now is the natural outgrowth of the situation that was created at the very beginning, of us really answering the question wrong, who is a person? So all of the wealth that characterizes the United States was built on the foundation of forced slave labor, which is one of our worst legacies, obviously. And there's elements of that legacy that definitely still exist today. Even the 13th Amendment that outlawed or banned slavery left a giant loophole that allows private corporations to profit off of forced labor from U.S. prisoners. Mass incarceration has allowed a $1 billion prison industry to flourish, which pays inmates pennies an hour for their work. So it's not just that we have more people locked up in this country than any other country in the world, but then we're also forcing folks to work basically unpaid. And lots of times that's really dangerous and scary work. Last year here in California, when we had our devastating wildfires, women inmates were dispatched to the front lines and were paid $1 an hour for the dangerous work of fighting fires. And the private prison industry lobbies Congress and gives money to both Democrats and to Republicans to ensure that the status quo remains the same. We like to use a quote that was put out actually years ago, well before Move to Amend, but from one of our partner organizations that helped found Move to Amend. Slavery is the legal fiction that a person is property. Corporate personhood is the legal fiction that property is a person. So just to really tie together that, we're still kind of fighting the same struggle. But there's also hope. Besides the long-term solution, obviously, of the We the People Amendment and the work that we're doing at Move to Amend, the student activists from Florida have launched this hashtag Never Again movement and have organized the March for Our Lives. Mark your calendars for March 24th because it's going to be a massive day of protest against gun violence and corporate rule. And let's keep making the connection to Move to Amend and corporate rule so that we can all work towards enjoying a real democracy and also being safe. So, looking forward to seeing where that movement goes, and just real shout out to those students and young people who are being incredibly courageous, who are facing death threats. I mean, can you imagine facing surviving a shooting, which must have been completely terrifying, no matter how close in proximity folks were to it, totally terrifying. And now getting death threats from people because they're speaking out against the corporate and NRA takeover of our government that is not protecting them while they're in school. Just ludicrous. So let's move on, though, to some Move to Amend news from February. I want to give some shout outs to our affiliates and a reminder that if you tuned in a little bit later and didn't hear me at the beginning, if you share this feed right now while we're doing the broadcast to your Facebook, just click the little share button and make sure you use the hashtag Move to Amend. We'll pick one person who will win one of our stamps before the broadcast is over. So make sure you share it and invite your friends to come join us here. We'd like to give a warm welcome to 3 new affiliates that we had come on in the last month or so. Albuquerque moved to Amend in New Mexico, my home state, so special love for Albuquerque. High Desert moved to Amend in Boise, Idaho. Our first, well, we've had an affiliate in Boise before, but now it'll be, the first affiliate back again in Idaho, so exciting. And Greater Akron moved to Amend in Akron, Ohio. And in a similar spirit, we'd also like to give a shout out to folks from Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights in Ohio. They've recently joined together to form a new local network called Cleveland East Moved to Amend to represent our Ohio supporters in Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, and South Euclid. So banding together in the Cleveland area, which is awesome. Shout out to Anchorage, Alaska Moved to Amend for passing 2 resolutions in community councils for Mountain View and Turnagain, I guess is how you say it, Alaska. Our Alaskan folks have been hard at work passing local resolutions and have succeeded with 23 out of 36 community councils. With a few more to pass, they'll be taking their resolution to the Anchorage City Council to join the rest of their constituents. So big thanks to all of our Anchorage organizers for this tireless work that they've been doing for the last couple of years. Also, shout out to our affiliates in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Pensacola, Florida for their good work. And seeing them during my Gulf Coast barnstorming tour earlier this month. I'll be returning to the Gulf Coast in the fall, probably in September, and doing some more spots in Alabama, potentially in Georgia, and Mississippi. So looking forward to that, probably in September, and seeing our Move to Amend Southern supporters really soon. And shout out to our affiliates in the Minnesota State Network for their tremendous push to pass resolutions through their Democratic Farm Labor Caucuses. That's what the Democratic Party is called in Minnesota. And so far they've succeeded in passing resolutions in 18 local precincts and are working to pass more. Minnesota affiliates are among our best organized and are working, and they're doing doing hard work bird dogging their candidates. That means kind of following on the heels of candidates wherever they are and letting them know that they should pledge to amend and support Move to Amend. They've been lobbying their elected officials in Minnesota and are working to introduce state legislation heading into the 2018 midterms. So thank you, Minnesota, for your awesome work with Move to Amend. Also want to give a shout out and welcome to 2 awesome folks who have joined our team this month, Gabby Mora and Celine Chapman, our 2 new staff members that we've added, which is really great for all of us on the team, so we can spread the work out a little bit more and get even more done. Gabby and Salim actually both happen to live in the Philadelphia area. Gabby's technically in New Jersey, and Salim is in Philly proper. So Gabby's going to be our Leadership Summit coordinator, and then she's going to transition into being our media coordinator after the Leadership Summit is over in June. And then Salim is our legislative coordinator, and he and I are going to be working together on running our Pledge to Amend campaign and our citizen lobbying efforts. So really excited, and welcome to both of you for joining our team, and looking forward to working with you. Let's see. So that was February. And I didn't say anything about it, but I hope that Garrett can post, like I said, the barnstorming tour at the beginning of February kicked off with a conference in New Orleans, and we did get the panel that I was on recorded, thanks to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, who's the founder of the Young Turks, was the panel moderator. It was great to get to see him again. And they recorded the whole session, and I think folks will find it interesting. We get tons of questions about what is the difference between these different amendment groups, and why aren't you all doing the same work? And it's because we don't actually have the same goals, and that's common, in movements like this, that there are different ideas for how to solve the problems, especially big problems like like corporate personhood or money in politics. And so it was a good discussion to help show, what the differences are and kind of where the different groups fall and why we don't see eye to eye. And I was pleased that it seemed like most of the folks who came to our session were pretty convinced that, in my pitch, that corporate constitutional rights is the most fundamental problem. Citizens United actually is a symptom of that problem. and that we need an amendment that actually will address both of those two doctrines that were created by the Supreme Court. The idea that corporations have constitutional rights and the idea that money is speech. And so it was exciting and fun to get to see some of my colleagues like Cenk and all the awesome folks who came to the Unrigged Summit and participated in that conversation. And if you didn't get to join us, it's great that there's a recording. And if you like it, it would be great if you would share it with your friends as well to help people understand what the differences are between our different groups. So let's talk about March. Looking forward to March and beyond. March is Women's History Month. We put together a graphic showing the outrageous fact that the Supreme Court deems corporations to be people before it recognized that women are. Yep, that happened. WTF on that. So Garrett is going to share that graphic, and we actually created that last year for the Women's March, but it is timeless, and so that would be something that you could also share with your friends. It blows my mind that the Supreme Court in the 1870s, when women tried to say, hey, this new amendment, the 14th Amendment, which says that states need to give equal protection to all persons, is something that we could use to make the case that all of these states that deny us a right to vote are violating our 14th Amendment rights because, hey, look, we've got a belly button, we're persons, right? And so women like Susan B. Anthony actually went and voted, and they were arrested and, denied the ability to do so. And so then they sued, and it went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court actually said, you know what? No, the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to women. But just basically 10 years later, they said that it does apply to corporations. And that's not actually the only example, but it is the most striking and kind of at its core goes to show, what that court was all about, what corporate constitutional rights is all about, and how ludicrous the whole concept is. So, as we're going into Women's History Month tomorrow, let's make sure that everybody knows that story. We will be continuing our barnstorming tours in March. So I was in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama this month. Greg Coleridge, our outreach director, was barnstorming in Texas, and so we're hoping that we'll have some new affiliates come onto the scene from his work, looking at Houston and San Antonio and Austin and Dallas. So that's exciting, and we'll be continuing. Greg and I are each doing a tour a month, basically, for this year. So I'll be in Arizona starting next week. I'll be in Tucson on Monday, and if I'm gonna remember the order of things right, let's see. I think it's Prescott on Tuesday, and then Wednesday. Well, I might not have the order of this right because I just go and follow my phone and my directions. But I do know that I'm going to Prescott, Tucson, Phoenix, and Flagstaff. So if you're in Arizona, I'd love to see you. And I will be at the Participatory Democracy Conference in Phoenix as part of the trip, so that's going to be exciting as well. And then doing barnstorming, speaking events in those towns that I mentioned. And then Greg will be in Montana and Idaho in April, and we'll be posting details about that soon. And I will be in Rhode Island and possibly Connecticut as well in late April, early May. And so we're putting together the details of that right now. But if you're in any of those states, we'd love to see you. And if you're not in one of those states and you'd like to bring us to your community, then you can check out our barnstorming page, which Garrett will post in the comments, and take you to the link to where you can see what tours are coming up and also how you can request a speaker to come to your town. And we're doing a lot of work right now on our Leadership Summit. Our Leadership Summit is a conference that we have been putting on every other year. So the first one was in 2016. This will be our second ever National Leadership Summit. It'll be in Washington, D.C. this June 8th through 11th at Trinity University. And today is actually the last day for an early bird discount. So if you register today and use the discount code EARLY when you check out, you can get $45 off the already super affordable registration costs. We're doing it at Trinity University, and so there's housing and food there, and so you don't have to get a hotel, expensive hotel, don't have to get an expensive, do expensive, restaurants. We try to make it as affordable and accessible to everyone. There are scholarships that we have. So applying, registering and applying for that early is important if that's something that you need to be able to attend, but we try to make it so everyone can come. And it's going to be a great event. There'll be trainings, deep political education, community building, and then we'll be doing a lobbying day on the last day. I'm really excited to announce that my friend Tom Hartman will be joining us. So he'll be one of the speakers. He just let me know last week that he's in. So we're working on the other speakers as well and putting together the program, but I promise you it's going to be amazing. And all of the awesome Move to Amend national team folks and all of our awesome local affiliate people will be there, so you don't want to miss it. Last year it was only open to people who are already active with Move to Amend, but this year we're throwing the doors open to anybody who wants to start to get involved, so you don't have to have any previous experience to come, and we'd love to see you there. So let's go. Belly of the Beast, Washington, D.C., June 8th through 11th at Trinity University. And if you go to movetoamend.org/summit, which Garrett will post in the comments, you can get all the details. And don't forget that today is the last day to register for the early bird discount, so you want to do that now. Also in March, we're going to have a whole bunch of webinar trainings that we're offering. So we have our normal, our monthly Take Action webinar that we do every month on the first Tuesday. So in March, the topic will be an introduction to direct action. You'll learn how direct action techniques have worked for past movements and how they can be applied to our work at Move to Amend. And then we're doing this awesome partnership with Free Speech for People, some of our allies and friends at another organization. And then a number of other groups are also joining in and co-sponsoring with us as well. And the topic for these webinars is inclusivity and intersectionality in the pro-democracy movement. So it's going to be a coming together of activists and organizers within the pro-democracy movement, so the larger money in politics and amendment movement, to discuss the importance of approaching this work with an intersectional analysis. The goal is to give activists who are involved in passing the 28th Amendment, or who are involved in more broad, and kind of all the different areas of democracy reform, tools to make our movement more intersectional and inclusive by focusing on connecting with, learning from, supporting, and building with communities that are marginalized by systems of oppression. So there'll be general tips. It's not the only place where this information is coming together, but we want to be having that conversation with the pro-democracy movement about how to be better in this area and how we can improve the relevance of our work for marginalized communities. And so having folks who are in those marginalized communities let us know, that is key. And so that's what we'll be talking about, and we'll be doing 2 of those webinars in March. They'll both have the same agenda, but the idea is to do 2 to help make it more possible for more folks to participate. So the first one will be Sunday, March 25th at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern. And then the second one is Thursday, March 29th at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. So 2 different times, one on a weekend, to try and make it so that if you're somebody who works a normal 9 to 5, maybe Sunday is better for you. And as far as we see it, this is kind of the beginning point for some discussions that we've been having in Move to Amend, that folks have been having at Free Speech for People, but that largely isn't happening in some of the other circles. And we'd like to take it there and then also continue it. So we might continue this in ways that we haven't even thought of yet, based on these initial 2 conversations. And so we'll go from there. So with that, that's kind of what we can expect in March. If you have any questions, though, or anything that you're wondering about Move to Amend wise, hit me up before I sign off here, and I would love to answer your questions and have some conversation. And while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions, you can just type them in the comments. I want to announce that Joseph Cohn of Wailuku, Hawaii, sorry if I said that wrong, is our lucky winner of the Move to Amend stamp right here. So Joseph will direct message you on Facebook and let you know, or you can tell us your address so that we can send you one of these in the mail before the end of the week. And thanks for sharing the post. And we'll probably be doing that regularly, so be ready to post the announcement for folks to join us who are your friends every time we do these live reports. So let's see. Let me open this up and make sure. Garrett, any questions? Last call before we sign off. If anybody has any questions or comments, post them in the comments, and I would love to answer them as best I can. And if you're listening to the recording, you can post your questions now, and we will make sure to message you back and respond so that you don't miss the opportunity either. I'm not seeing anything. I'll give it a minute just to make sure there's nothing. Nobody who's still typing. I don't want to sign off before you're done. All right, looks like it's clear. Right, Garrett? Can you give me another chat just to let me know? In the meantime, I'll also let folks know that our live report for March will be on March 28th, same time as normal, 5 o'clock Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. You can always contact us at any time through Facebook. Garrett's doing a great job of making sure that we're really responsive, so you can contact us through Messenger on Facebook, but you can also email us at info@movetoamend.org or call us at 916-318-8040. We're in our Sacramento office Monday through Thursday, and would love to hear from you. So looks like there aren't any questions, so that's great. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to all of you who are Move to Amend volunteers. If you're not active with Move to Amend yet, then please go to movetoamend.org/volunteer and let us know what your interests are, what your skills are. If you don't quite know how to answer that question, just let us know you want to get involved, and we will give you a call and follow up and plug you in. Thanks, Garrett, for running the comments board with me tonight and for helping me on the script. Keon, shout out to you for that, too. And I guess that's it. Have a great night, everyone. And I will see you again on March 28th, if not before. Take care and keep moving to amend.